So Jesus spoke and nobody ever understood the true meaning of the word of God until you came along. You're the first one to understand the true word of God. This is what you're saying. And this is why there's so much confusion in the world. This is why there are 40,000 different denominations. This is why Christianity has done some of the most heinous things in history, is because it was all written as metaphor. It was all written as allegory. It was all written in parables. And so because it was written that day, unless you understood the Bible code, then you wouldn't be able to understand what the word of God is. And therefore you project it out as your own self and not being able to project it out in the will of God. This essentially is the way that people are re-enslaving people into the newest doctrines of Christianity. Is to say to them that since the Bible speaks in parables, since there are some allegories and there are some metaphors, that the entirety of the understanding of the Bible is done as metaphors, parables, and there's all symbolic. So therefore, unless you knew the code, so you are saying that over time immemorial, the overwhelming majority of people who have given their life to this book, dedicated themselves to this book, pledged and think that their immortal soul is based on this book. None of them understood anything in this book because they didn't have the Bible code that you have today. They didn't understand the parables. You say that. So Jesus spoke to these people and they just sitting around like, what? And I know some of the times in the book, it says that the people, that the disciples, the apostles did not understand what Jesus's meanings were. And I want you to think about how much sense does that make? You have come as God to give man a New Testament in order for man to be able to live based on the goodness of your being. And instead of telling man flat out, third grade level, like you're speaking to a 3-year-old, instead of being plain so that there is no way for man to interject his own personal thoughts so that he doesn't create genocide of other people who don't believe in this, so that he doesn't have witch hunts, so that he doesn't go and conquer other people and genocide those people, so that man has a clear-cut understanding of your deity. Instead of doing that, your deity decided that he was going to write or speak in parables and metaphors and allegories and make it difficult for the people to ever come into comprehension of it, so that the people wouldn't actually know what your God is truly meaning unless they elevate themselves to be able to read the code. He's doing this to people who were illiterate, people who were unschooled, people who were just doing their regular blue-collar job. That's what your God's plan was. He convoluted things like in the Old Testament prior to Peter's writing, or Peter, the book of Peter, prior to the book of Peter, the people believed that just God made the universe in 6 days. It was the evening and it was the day, and that was day one. It uses the word yom, which means a 24-hour day. But then along comes Peter and say, one day unto God is like 1,000 years to man. So now what you want to do is say that the 6 days were 6 time frames, when it was expressly clear that that is not what Peter is indicating. He's just indicating how this deity is supposedly outside of time and space. But now you take that and flip it, because we know that the universe was not created in 6 days, that the Genesis story does not make sense, that you have day and evening on day 1, 2, and 3, but the sun and the moon are not created to day 4. So we know that that has to be that has to be incorrect. So metaphor, allegory, parables. And of course, for the thousands of years, nobody understood that. It took Peter, the first Peter, in order for that to be understood. But prior to that, no one understood that, because they didn't have the code, the Bible code. This is how you imprison people today who are able to research and find out all the errancy of the Bible, and find the Bible to not speak in univocality, because it demonstrates And that would demonstrate that the Bible, it cannot and is not the word of any deity that should be qualified to be worshipped and or to be looked upon as God. Because there's no, if a God desires to be worshipped, then that's not God. But this is how you're now swerving the people to make them think that they have to come to you to get the code, to understand. And all you're doing is giving them whatever understanding you have decided, not some divine inspiration. But you keep on believing that, and you keep on thinking that. And as far as Bill Donahue and Santos, they just as full of bullshit as you are. So have a great day. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibration.